You're very welcome back. Last night, in a fiery press conference, to say the least, at Trump Tower in New York, US President Donald Trump defended himself against criticism that he was slow to condemn the violence during the Charlottesville clashes that left a 32-year-old woman dead. A combative and unrestrained Mr. Trump insisted there was blame on both sides and that he had wanted to get all the facts before he made his second, stronger statement. Guys, you're both very welcome this morning.
Good morning.
He is right, factually, to state that there was violence on both sides, but it is the first time a modern president has legitimised white supremacist groups. And it is terrifying, Ellen.
Donald Trump started by saying there was blame on both sides. And the world, Americans and the rest of the world, took an intake of breath and said, really? That is not the reaction we expected. Everybody reacted and said, this is completely wrong. These are white supremacists. These are the Ku Klux Klan. This is the stuff of history that nobody wants to resurface at all. He didn't take to Twitter, and Twitter is his form of firing off missives at people or communicating with people. He didn't use Twitter, and I thought J.K. Rowling very cleverly tweeted and said, gosh, what an awful day for the president to forget how to tweet, which was
I'd say
very
McMaster
smart.
had his phone in his pocket, that's why.
Oh, but you had that response on Twitter. You had Barack Obama quoting Nelson Mandela and saying people aren't born hating people because of their race or their background or their colour or whatever. This stuff just doesn't happen.
Actually, Barack Obama's tweet, that tweet has now become the second most liked tweet of all time. Not to make it all about Twitter. People at home don't use Twitter going, so what does it matter?
But something like 2 million people actually said, I concur, or I agree with that tweet. But the White House then spent 2 days, I believe, in the background, saying to the president, you really can't do this. This is stirring up a storm. What you are communicating is the fact that you believe white supremacists, there is a role for white supremacists, or there is a place for white supremacists, and there isn't, and you need to backtrack from it. And I don't think Donald Trump does a good standing in the middle. This is the man who said, we will build a wall.
I think that's an understatement, Ellen.
So he loves coming out, firing from the hip and saying, this is what I believe, cope with it. And I think he was really caught. I don't think he believed a word of there is no place for the KKK. The statement that he read, and I think an awful lot of the commentary afterwards said, if you looked at him reading the statement, he read word for word from a teleprompter. His heart wasn't in it. He was told to
Somebody
say
said he looked like a hostage victim being forced to read out certain words.
Well, actually, he looked like, and now for the statement, and then finished his press conference. But then
last night we saw the real Donald Trump.
I think he reverted to type. I think he came back to, in his own head, saying, I don't know why I'm pussyfooting around this issue. I don't actually see an awful lot wrong with it, and that's quite terrifying. He's back to there's blame on both sides. I'm sure there are good guys and bad guys on both sides,
100%.
but that's not the argument.
Yeah, that's not the argument.
The argument is that there is no place on the streets of the world for somebody who carries Nazi flags or who holds the beliefs of the KKK. Their time has come and gone, long gone, and we don't want to see it resurface.
And we know, Michael, from the white supremacist reaction to Trump's lack of condemnation of them initially, that they are emboldened by that.
They are. Well, it was a shocking day in one respect. You had the former head of the Ku Klux Klan congratulating the President of the United States.
And thanking him.
And thanking him. This is terrible stuff. I mean, if you see the hate, the violence of the Ku Klux Klan, even the black and white film clips from the 60s. And the other thing is, I think, Sinead, you were just saying there before we came on air about that you can't impeach this guy for this reason. But we are watching now. Paul Ryan...
Hurry up, Robert Mueller, is all I can say.
Precisely. That might impeach him. But you had Paul Ryan, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, saying that white supremacy was repulsive. Now, will he go further than that? The most interesting tweet, I thought, came from Carol Bernstein, one of the Washington Post reporters who uncovered Watergate.
Any relation? Carl Bernstein. Sorry.
The original.
I thought you said Carol. I was like, any relation?
The original.
The original.
Who brought down the president with, I think it was Woodward, wasn't it?
It was, yeah, that's right.
And
Woodward and Bernstein.
He said no president, including Nixon, was so ignorant of the facts and distorted facts. Now, we've gone beyond Nixon here, because Nixon was a crook, but he had some political antennae. And he was into foreign policy a bit and that kind of thing. But when you have one of the most famous journalists in American history saying, this guy's worse than Nixon, we're in serious trouble.
Do you think, I mean, we saw over the weekend, because of his lack of condemnation of the white supremacists, his own party turning on him, some of them, and we saw even Fox News being critical of him. So do we think we're going to see that again after this roll back on the statement he was clearly forced to make the previous evening?
I wonder about that, because
I wonder about it too, Michael,
we've been here before, not to the same extent, I think, and they did roll back a bit. I just wondered, was it because he was in the foyer of his Trump Tower residence, or former residence, and that he was, even though he had all members of staff around him, that because he was out of the White House, and that this guy is a loose cannon. I think it's worse than that, though. I think he has no grasp of politics. He has no grasp of American history. He's no grasp of the responsibility of office.
And at the same time, as this is going on, white supremacists are emboldened. As you said, the ex-head of the KKK thanking him. So this weekend there are marches by white supremacists planned across America. Scary time to be an American, actually.
It's a very scary time to be American. And I saw a television clip of Hillary Clinton last night. She predicted actually this, almost to the letter of what he said. She said, look, this guy won't change in office. You see, some of us thought that, particularly those of us who've watched politicians...
He would be managed by those around him.
He was being managed by those around him, that his extreme views during the campaign was to get elected, and once he was elected, he'd actually become much more cautious.
The true horror is that's who he is.
That is who he is.
It was actually, we were saying there was a clip of McMaster and his other aides, just a few photographs of them taken while Trump went off as a loose cannon, as you said, and they were literally hanging their heads in their hands going, jeez, we've just... You know, all the good we did with the statement, whatever good that was, has been completely negated by him, clearly showing that he's kind of OK with white supremacists.
But I think it's that we thought that he would be managed by people around him. I think that was incredibly
it's not possible to manage him.
I don't think he has ever been managed. I think Donald Trump does what Donald Trump wants to do, and the people around him, he's always been surrounded by minions. He hasn't been surrounded by people who are his equal or who he perceives as his equal in any way.
Well, we thought McMaster might be able to get a handle on him, but clearly not.
And Bannon seems to be out of it now.
Well, apparently Murdoch said to Trump, get Bannon out the gap.
So that's...
So I don't... Well, I don't know.
It kind of looks that way. The interesting thing as well about, we'll say, if you go back to Nixon, Nixon had a history of involvement in American politics. I mean, he'd been Eisenhower's vice president. He had run against Kennedy, defeated by Kennedy.
He did have political savvy, you're right,
Michael. He had political savvy. This guy doesn't.
We could talk ad nauseum about this, but it's going to depress the hell out of everyone. Let's talk about something that is maybe more depressing, but at least more relevant to us immediately, Brexit. So May continually saying, we're not going to have a border, there's not going to be a physical border, Europe needs to change what laws it has in place. Now, I have a theory that this is all set up to mean that Brexit can't happen and they'll have to go back to the people. That they're saying such outlandish things, well, relatively outlandish, they're impossible to achieve, that they're going to have to go, well, do you know what, we'll have to go back to the people because Europe is saying no to all of our demands. That's my crazy theory and maybe a wild hope of mine that Brexit won't come to pass.
I love your theory. My theory is slightly different, and it's that they're all living in this little bubble, OK? So they go in the morning and they say, well, chaps, what are we going to do about the border? And somebody says, I don't know. Should we leave the border as it is? And they say, well, why don't we just leave it? That's a good idea.
This is Theresa May here.
And it's a bit cockney-tastic, but I'll take it.
But I think what actually happens is I don't think they have a vision. I think they think a position paper is really a wish list. This is what we would like to happen. Everybody would love that there would be no border, there would be no customs, there would be a free movement of people, that really it would be the same. There would be no change. Nobody in Ireland is going to disagree with that.
Brexit is Brexit, baby. Yeah.
But it's almost as if... Do you remember the visual when David Davis went off to meet the Europeans for the first time, and he had all men on one side.
That's right, yeah.
And you had a mixture of men and women from Europe on the other side. And the Europeans all had this big stack of papers. These are all the things we're going to talk about. And the Brits sat there with their hands on the table, waiting to
with
chat.
Nothing.
With not even a
with
notepad.
nothing, not even a notepad.
Not even a
They're
notepad,
doing the same thing. I think they have this vision that it will all be right on the night, but nobody has actually put the detail into it. I think the devil will be in the detail for them, and I don't think they've got anywhere near the detail.
I can't see Michel Barnier
yet.
going, yeah, lads, no problem. We'll just address what Europe means. Yeah, I can't see it happening either.
I think you might be right, Sinead, by the way. The Remainers, I think, might be hoping that putting these outlandish proposals before Europe saying no, let's have another referendum.
I think that's their plan.
Yeah.
Because it's jumping off a cliff if they go through with it.
And it'll be the next one will be based on the economics.
We'll see. OK, guys, thank you very much, as always. We didn't get to the Leaving Cert. Michael, it was passing honours in your day. You got a pass. You got honours, apologies.
I got honours. Points were way down the road. I got honours, all right. But do you know what I did? To such a simple society, on the night I got my Leaving Cert results, bear in mind, Kerry, long time ago, I played a football match.
Gee, I can't remember what I did on the night
What a
I got
boring
married.
You went out raging, you crazy animal.
Possibly.
What a boring young
No
fellow.
comment.
Let us know what you did after you got your results. Did you play a football match like Michael? Did you go crazy like Ellen? You can't remember it all. Let us know what you did the night you received your Leaving Cert results. We'd love to hear from you. You can text AM followed by your comment to 53131. You can email irelandam@tv3.ie. You can Facebook or you can tweet us at irelandamtv3. Plenty more to come here. We'll be back after this short break. See you in a few.